Often I think we try to get the broad meaning of culture applied to deaf culture, but I don't know that that always fits. For me, language is the most important thing, and also a way of life. I think the most important thing about deaf culture is you start with individual deaf people. Now those people came together and they saw the commonalities of their life experiences. They communicated with each other with gestures to share information, to share emotions, to communicate. And that is what has become a way of being for individuals who are deaf and has been passed down now for centuries.
And what deaf culture is a close community of people that share the same language, which is American Sign Language here in America, share the same groups, share theater, share behaviors, share social norms, share arts, and have a culture that can tie them all together.
I think first off, people would want to know if I can speak. They want to know if I can hear at all. They want to know how I would communicate. Those are the questions that I'm often asked. And often, when I read and write English, people will say, "That's amazing that you can read or write so well. How did you do that?" I learned how to do it in a different way. Signing has helped me develop my ability to read and write well. I know there are a lot of people who speak English who can hear, but they can't read or write as well as other people. So utilizing my American Sign Language ability, I was able to learn how to read printed words. I think other misconceptions about individuals who are deaf, that if you can hear and you can talk, the opportunities for your life are not going to be great. You need to be isolated. For example, looking at this deaf school, it's very vibrant. The classes, the education are comparable to any other child's experience.
Yeah, I think a common thing is that there is one language, that deaf people only use sign language, but really there's a broad range of language use amongst deaf people. There are some people who only use sign language, some people who do some speaking and some sign language, and some people who only speak, and it varies a lot depending on the individual. Deaf people tend to have a lot of patience with hearing people who want to learn sign language, so they often will be very involved in helping and teaching people some signs.
When other people say a person can speak and they're deaf, and they see him speak, they say, "Oh, they can hear well." Maybe they're hard of hearing and they can read lips. Not always. And we talk about reading lips and the oralism. It's a very difficult process. Somebody who is hard of hearing, people assume that they can understand everybody, but they don't hear well, they're going to struggle. You have to look at them face on, write, gesture, to make sure that understanding has been met. I probably understand maybe 10% of lip reading. I prefer to write or sign or gesture. I think that that's a better way to feel connected with a person. Not just writing only, but when you write, have eye contact with the person, because then you feel connected. Once you finish writing, look at the person, smile. Then it's all about humanity and the human conditions. That's so important.
If you would like to get the attention of somebody that is deaf or hard of hearing, there are many things you can do. You can approach them if you're from behind. Just try to go around them so you don't sneak up and startle them. You can use a visual, a waving. You can stomp on the floor. Or You can maybe even tap the table. Things that you might not necessarily do with a typical hearing person are all acceptable to get the attention of a deaf individual.
Don't ever grab their face and turn it. Never, never. It's forbidden. Don't yell. Some of us can hear some. I am one that cannot hear anything. People think that yelling is going to help, but when speaking to a person, raising your voice is unnecessary.
Yeah, there are many ways and many different tools of communication that you can use if you don't know how to communicate. You can write notes, you can use gesturing. If you both have a phone, you can type notes back and forth on the phone. So I think most of the time gesturing and pointing are the most common though.
If a person wants to communicate but you don't know sign, have paper and a writing implement ready and offer to write. Better than, I don't know what to do, you know. Showing that you are willing to have that human connection of communication. Be the assertive one.
Hearing impaired really is an outdated term, and deaf communities and professionals, organizations really prefer the terms deaf and hard of hearing. However, our population is diverse, and I do know somebody that refers to himself as hearing impaired. There are other labels that people might identify as. I consider myself simply a person who happens to have a hearing loss. Some deaf people don't like that term because they don't really feel like they've lost anything, and that's fine. I think when in doubt, ask the person themselves how they identify themselves.
So the word hearing impaired, to me, doesn't fit me. It doesn't mean that I hate the word, I don't hate the word, but conceptually it doesn't fit me. It doesn't define me as a person who's deaf. I'm independent. I'm a deep thinker. I've got feelings. I function in the everyday society just fine. Impaired, the word sounds like it's a sign to me about something that is not as good as other people. I'm missing something. It has a negative connotation. I'm defective. The word deaf can encompass so many different people, but the word impairment limits you or assigns restrictions.
One thing I think is really important is to make sure that you have a good acoustic environment. For people that use hearing aids or cochlear implants, or maybe even those that don't, it's really hard to hear in background noise. So to be very aware of the background noise that's in the room and to minimize that as much as possible can be extremely beneficial. That can be simple things like closing the door or turning off a fan, making sure that you use a microphone if you're in a meeting and there is one. Don't have side conversations when you're next to a person who's deaf or hard of hearing if they're in a meeting, because they're probably going to miss, if they're listening, half of what the speaker's trying to say if they have that distraction next to them. Lighting is very important when you're working with adults or children that are using any kind of visual communication. If you are standing in front of a window or bright lights, it's really hard for that person to see your face, to see your gestures, your signs, your body language. It's exhausting and it's headache-inducing. Or if you're in a really dim room, these are things that are really easy for you to fix as long as you're aware of them. It's as simple as kind of turning around, shifting your body, turning on the lights a little bit. If you have to, moving to another room to have a meeting. But yes, lighting is very important. It is a critical element of visual communication.
Just don't be afraid of deaf people. We're human beings, we won't bite. Yeah, we're very happy to help you learn some signs. So.
I go out of my way to try to communicate with you. So I hope that you'll at least reciprocate and try to communicate with me. Some other advice I could give is if you get out and you meet deaf people, you can learn how they communicate. They can all share advice with you. So don't ever be afraid to approach one of them and ask them on what would be a good way to communicate. I know that that's going to be new for you, but I think that that's the best way to approach that.